Click and go live now. Let's see. Yeah. Just another day. Waiting for everything to get it. Look like the live is starting up here as we speak. Let's see. Waiting to see what's going on with the live. What's going on, good people? We back in here again for another conversational podcast discussion. It's we got the one and only Soundoff the General in here, and we got the one and only mental coach Kev. Today, man, we got a powerful talk. So it's something that I would suggest that you tune in on because it's an important discussion about forgiveness. So we're gonna get into forgiveness today, man. Which a lot of people, which is this is what's crazy about this. I was just in church yesterday, which was Thursday, and it's just like discipleship type of almost Bible study-ish type of thing that they do on Thursday that I go in just to kind of get my knowledge up. And we got to the point to where forgiveness came up, and we stuck on and stayed on the topic of forgiveness for a long time, which was interesting. And I couldn't help but to think about the fact that we were having this podcast today, and it was leading up to it, and I had to actually mention it there. Another thing I want to mention is forgiveness ended up being this thing that started coming up in my life, and I could tell that it was something that um, I had to actually pay attention to because it was popping up in places that I feel like it shouldn't have. So, for example, I was just randomly reading, yeah, I'm a reader now, this book called The Miracle of Mind Power by Dan Custer, because one of my close partners, somebody that's closely related to him, ended up saying that they say that this book right here was one of the reasons that they're successful now, and they one of these people that go around doing consulting and stuff and making hundreds of thousands of dollars for each company and or from each company. So in reading this book, I was like, okay, let me see some stuff about, increasing my mind power and getting in more of a state of success. Since his family member mentioned that it was dope and she got the book for him, then hey, let me read it too. And I don't think it's in print no more, but anyway, I found it. And as I'm reading through it, I get to this actual chapter, which I didn't understand why in the world this chapter was in here, which was on forgiving others.
Right.
After that chapter, it's another chapter on forgiving let's see, forgiving the past, and then this one on this is the interesting topic here. Forgiving God. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so this is what we're gonna get into today. But first off, we real pro forward with mental wellness, man, and checking in on our people. So we like to ask each other, man, how are you doing today? So sound off the general, man. How's your day going? How's your mental health? How's
Man,
mentally
it's
for
going
you?
pretty good. Today was an easy day on the job, man. There was a moment where my looked like my day was getting ready to be hijacked. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Because
Uh-huh.
when you text me, you was like, "Hey, what time we going on?" And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "Man, I'm running behind." And what was really cool about it was that I could tell I'm getting better with what I do because I was able to speed through what I had to do to get off and get here on time. So, things worked out. A little tired a little bit, but other than that, man, no complaints, man. You know what I mean? Life is good. You know what I mean? That's the lens that I choose to look at it from.
Man, dope.
How about yourself? How you doing?
Man, I'm great. I want to say, I'm glad that you're doing well. I was, I did hit you up asking you about what time it might be today because we loosely do, some time between or around 5 or 5:30. And when you mentioned, hey, it might be a late day for you or whatever, then I was like, man, okay, it's gonna go past 5:30. But then interestingly, you hit me up around 4:30. It was like, hey, man, I'll be good at 5. So that's what's up, man. Things end up working out. But yeah, man, I'm doing great, man. I'm still doing my meditation every day, man. It's been, man, what, 4 or 5, 6 years or something, 5-ish years.
Right.
So that's been great for me, man. I can notice that, I'm enhancing to a different level spiritually, man. Get more of a sense of discernment and prophecy, so to speak, if you were to say. Then just, man, being able to just take the time to just, calm my mind, because I'm one of these people that think my mind is going all the time, man. It's like I go use the bathroom early in the morning. I'm looking at, okay, who made the toilet? Kohler made the toilet. That sounds like Coles. Did I pay my Coles card? Okay, what about my other card? What about this bill? What bills are due today? Okay, well, we do the podcast today. Okay, do I need to do some study on forgiveness? All was cool that we talked about forgiveness yesterday in church. That's how my mind goes. So yeah, man, being able to just quiet that mind for a moment in the day, man, is dope. Plus, it helps with a lot of other stuff. But yeah, man, on to this topic, forgiveness, man. So what's your experience with forgiveness, Sound Off? I know you got a biblical perspective. You know some scriptures, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What you got?
So like forgiveness for me has been a lifelong process.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken me a long time to get to a place of forgiving myself, others, what I call God. You know what I mean? And it's interesting because like, our natural inclination when life happens is to blame those that we feel like have offended us or done us wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten to a place where I realize that people are people.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? People are they're just people. They're having their own human experience. They
Mm-hmm.
they are caught up in their emotions, their situations, their
Yep.
struggles, their plights, you know what I mean?
Yes,
Trying to
sir.
figure out how they're gonna get through the next day and stuff like that. So it's important for me, I had to realize not to take everything so personal
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, for instance, like you had said one episode, man, somebody cut you off in traffic. Now you ready to go to war like it's Iraq or something. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
you ready to risk it all because they didn't cut you
Cut
off
you
in
off in
traffic.
traffic. Yep.
And it's like, man, it wasn't that serious. You know what I'm saying? Like there's all type of things. But for me, when I was in church, we talked about forgiveness, and it was always a hard topic for me because
Yep.
like the way my mind works, once something happened, it happened. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? And it's hard to get past when it happened. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So my former pastor would say it like this. He would say, the biblical term or the biblical definition of forgiveness is letting the offender off the hook.
Mm.
You
Let
know what I'm
off the
saying?
hook. Yeah.
To act as if they never did it in the first place.
Mm.
And you know what I mean? And like that's challenging. You know what I'm saying? Because it's
Yep.
like, man, here it is. You done slapped me. You
Yep.
called me out my name. You
Come
done
on.
stole my money.
Yep.
Took my woman. It's like,
Yeah. But you expecting me to just let that go and then just
act like it never happened. Yeah.
that's one of the
Hey
that's
man,
one of the questions
that
that came up in church. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
go now. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's one of the things that came up in church. The actual person that was in there was like, "Hey, like, do we just forgive him to where it's over with, and do we still associate with him? Because I had an issue with my husband, family, etc. And I just couldn't stand being around them. And I'll be telling them just go over there yourself. And I was saying like, okay, I can forgive them, but forgive them from a distance, But then if I truly forgive them, then how come I can't, still be in their presence, so to speak? And that was one of the things, man, that the idea of just letting things go, like you wiping the slate away clean. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Now
Yeah.
we spoke before, man, in the therapeutic one-on-one forum, which we gonna talk about it here as well. And I always want to put the disclaimer out, man, that hey, we don't really want to ruffle anybody's feathers, but if your feathers are ruffled, hopefully it helps you to fly better. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I was abused as a young kid or whatever, in a
Same
sexual
here.
way. And man, I just couldn't I couldn't fathom the idea of forgiving, the person who did it to me. Man, it was like, how can I forgive this person that did what I consider to be this most god awful thing to me, right? So I ended up being in a therapy session one day. Now, if anybody don't know, I do therapy. I do hypnotherapy, which is a hypnosis form of therapy. Don't feel like it's just something that's crazy and spooky or what they see in the movies or what they show in the movies or portray in the movies. They just like to exaggerate in movies things that are actually powerful. And I tell people this a lot, like, okay, if we ain't shooting no flame ball guns, we ain't walking around here with Transformers or Godzilla downtown knocking over buildings, we ain't flying like Superman. They exaggerate stuff in movies, right? But back to the therapy thing. So I was doing a hypnotherapy session with a person where we was having their higher part of themselves express it through themselves, so to speak, which can actually help to heal a person because of the person's higher self can actually do a body scan on the person and actually find ailments or issues. And this particular person I was working with, it actually found something with their heart as well and a number of different other things. And it'll actually state what the person can actually do to help heal it if it can't heal it on the spot. And then a number of the things it just heals right on the spot. Like they say, we can heal, we can get a cut on our skin and then our our skin can heal, our body can heal in a certain way. So there's other bigger ailments that can heal in a more spiritual way. But I brought up this session to say this. During that session, I kind of was selfish in that session because as I was asking that person's higher self questions for them, I was like, let me ask a question for me because forgiveness kind of came up. And I'm like, okay, so in forgiveness, and I had put it down here in my notes. I said, when we forgive, should we just like wipe the slate away clean, completely of what the person did to us? And this is what the higher spiritual self said. Essentially, yes. And I was like, okay, it's hard for me at the moment. I was like, can I have some advice? Because I can't fathom the idea of just wiping away clean what somebody did to me that I feel like is so god awful or whatever. And this is what the person higher self said, the spiritual self said. Can you accept that you have potentially exhibited the same thing to someone else? So
Mm,
I said, dang. And it kind of hit me. And I was like, okay. I said, so it's almost like forgiving ourselves. And then it said, yes, it's a mirror. And I was like, okay, is that why they say forgiveness is for us? And it said, yes. When you see another person, you see yourself, right? So that's when things change for me. And after that moment, I'm getting kind of chill bumps now. You see, I call them truth bumps now. That's the moment it kind of changed for me. And I'm like, okay, if I'm looking at this other person like that they did this thing to me and I can't forgive them, I'm not forgiving myself. Like I'm even though this person is could be a different gender, different color, a different height, different whatever, and I'm looking at them and not forgiving them, thinking that they're a different individual that's outside of myself, but this is a person that's actually attached to me. This
right.
is a mirror version of myself, right? So when I
I
thought of it that way, I'm like, man, I'm sure this particular person had I'm sure somebody did the same thing to this person here. And when I actually called, man, I remember when I made that call, I think it was before I was about to do some sort of trip and go out of the country and, have a good time. I just wanted to get that off of my heart, man, so that I'd be more freer when I'd be having that vacation. And man, the conversation went extremely well, man. So when I kind of got into it, I didn't know the things to say, but I was just hey, I'm gonna let God, the Spirit, lead me in the things to say, and then just started speaking. And what really helped was that message that I got from having that therapy session or spiritual session with that person, as well as me knowing that I'm kind of looking at myself when I look at that person on the other side there. So man, that conversation went well, and in that conversation, that particular person ended up telling me that they had the same thing happen to them, even in a more crazier way. Was I don't know if you can say, well, the person was raped and all type of crazy stuff, abused and all type of little stuff that you wouldn't even imagine. So, in having that conversation with that person, and it really helped a lot, and then started just my road of trying to figure out, man, who's the other people I need to forgive, because I'm going to mention this. This is what I mentioned yesterday in Bible study as well, or discipleship training, whatever you call it. So this is what I mentioned there as well. I said, I consider not forgiving being like, us all being eagles and knowing we have the ability to soar and fly wherever we want to fly to. You see how eagles go, they way high in the sky, get going mountains, wherever they want to go flying at, right? So not forgiving is like having all of this weights of unforgiveness on you. This person I ain't forgave him for this. Here's a weight. This person I ain't forgave him for that. Here's a weight. This other person I ain't forgiven for this. Here's a weight. They did this other thing to me. Here's another weight. So you're trying to fly, but you got all that weight that's holding you back, kind of like how chickens are. Chickens can't just fly like eagles can. They'll get a little airtime and then they come down, right? So when you start forgiving people, you actually forgiving yourself. You releasing that weight, and then it
Right.
causes you to be able to be more successful and fly higher. And that's why in this book, The Miracle of Mind Power, they had that actual chapter on forgiveness, the magic of prayer and forgiveness. And in here it mentioned wiping the slate away clean. It mentioned forgiving yourself as well. That's the person that you got to consider forgiving. Forgiving yourself, forgiving others, and some people even have to forgive God because they don't understand God and the essence of love. And they feel like, okay, if God, if you love me this much and you're supposed to be this version of love, or this, you're supposed to be love in this essence, why are you allowing this stuff to happen to me? But
Right.
once you get in a space of forgiveness, then you get to the point to where you become to be freer. And once you start going down the road of it, then it becomes to be easier and easier. And you'll notice in some of these times that you offer forgiveness to a particular person, then they might offer apology in that particular conversation. And that's what happened with me my first time. And they say to not look for that. You know, you don't approach forgiveness and the idea of thinking that, okay, I want this other person to apologize, so I'm going to say, hey, I forgive you, even though I feel like I'm not wrong. The pastor, Pastor Dan mentioned that yesterday. It was like, okay, he ended up having experience in some sort of church related thing where he felt like he's supposed to get done some sort of way and they did him wrong. And so he said, you know what, I'm just going to, say I forgive them or whatever, or apologize, and hopefully they do the same to me. And he said God ended up telling them that, he was approaching it for the wrong reason. So my suggestion would be making sure you approach it for the right reason. Approach it from the
Mm-hmm.
fact of knowing that you're looking at a mirror version of yourself. You're looking at, the idea that you could have potentially exhibited the same thing to somebody else, so to speak.
Right.
And they say that, not forgiving somebody is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It ain't hurting nobody but you.
But you,
You
yeah.
know what I mean?
And and that's so interesting because like even from like a comedic spirituality or a spiritual perspective, there's a thing called soul contracts where it's basically like, we choose our families, we choose the circumstances, we choose the environments, we choose, the aspect and the details of what's going to play out in our life before we get here. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? And so it's like there are some people in your life that they signed up. Okay, I'm gonna be the one to do this to you. I'm gonna be the one that got over on you. And the interesting thing about it is, I know some people are like, what does that mean? Like, why
Yeah.
would you say that? But it's like, it's all in the attempts for you to learn something.
Hmm.
There was something that when you came into life, this experience, you wanted to learn something, and so the best way to experience to learn something is by experience. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And so, Source God expresses himself itself in so many different facets and components in each and every one of us.
Yeah.
And so it's like the best way, Source wanted to learn is through experience. So you go through things, to learn. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So like when you were saying, is like not forgiving yourself, you know what I mean? Like they hit home.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's real because like there are so many people that have struggles with forgiving themselves. Me personally, I had a struggle, what I'm saying, with forgiving myself. It was about 3, 4 years ago. I had a manic episode where I did, you know, I got on live and had a rant and I'm calling people out and what people don't understand is like when you're having an episode, some things are real and some things are false. You just think they real.
Can you explain what a manic episode is? I know some people
So,
might be watching tonight.
so a manic episode is like basically temporary insanity. It's where your mind is not right. You have delusions. You have grandiosity. You have delusion, thinking things that are not true, but believing they are. Like, hey, I'm Barack Obama, or I'm wealthy, or I got all this money. Grand ideas. I'm gonna take over the world. I'm gonna lead a revolution. You know what I mean? Like it's so many things. Hypersexuality is recklessly spending your money. Is buying like one time in the episode, I bought a $60,000 car. You know what I'm saying? Like making 15 an hour.
And this is from
You know what I'm
what?
saying?
This is from what actual mental?
Bipolar,
Okay.
bipolar type 1. So
Okay.
bipolar 1 has manic episodes. Type 2 could have them, but not guaranteed to have them. You
Okay.
know what I'm saying? Then there's type 3 that's a mixture of both of them.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm type 1. And so, like I said, I had an episode, and in the midst of having this episode, I'm upset. I got a whole bunch of baggage, a whole bunch of pain that I haven't healed from, I haven't grew from, stuff I haven't forgive others for. And so then I go on Facebook and I had this big old rant, this big
Hmm.
old, I'm going out, I'm calling people out, and I'm calling them out their names, I'm talking bad, and I'm doing this and that. And the people that I did it to were people that I loved.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like I had a Kanye West moment.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so after that occasion or situation happened, there were several people, what I'm saying, that was like, man, we can't fool with dude no more. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm us over with. Me and my wife got separation before behind that. And for a long time, it took me a while to get over that, but not only get over that, but to forgive myself.
Yeah.
Because it was like, here it is. I'm a person that has know what it feels like to feel bullied, or know what it feels like to be picked on, or know what it feels like to be put down, or to not feel loved, or what I'm saying, to feel attacked. And for me to do those things to people that I love, that hurt. You know what I'm saying? It was a situation where I was like, man, I don't, I couldn't forgive myself for a long time. And then it got to the point where the further I got the spiritual knowledge and understanding, was like, back to the soul contracts for these people. I played a character in their play at this particular time.
Hmm.
We already signed up and agreed this was what was going to happen. The ending of our relationship was going to happen. So it took me to really realize, like, okay, this was by design. This wasn't by chance. Because sometimes when you do things and you have that regret, it's like, man, if only things would have went this way, if only things would have went, if I could have just got back home before this happened, you know what I mean? This would have never happened, you know what I mean? All
Hmm.
the type of things you feel, you have that regret and that remorse. And not only that, it was, it took some time to heal, to realize that, what, I'm still a good person, even though I had an ugly situation.
Hmm. Yep, yep. That one situation don't define who you are
Don't define
as a
me who
person.
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and here's the thing, I've had countless episodes. So that's, it's tons of things I had to work through to forgive. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I look at you, at one point I was looking at my life and was like, man, I done messed it up. You know what I'm saying? I done effed up. You know what I mean? Like I done really to put myself in a bad situation. And it's like after time, I have a friend who is a channeler, you know what I'm saying, and channel source. And it was like source, like, we don't look at you that way.
So you said channel. Can you explain that to the people too, like in a little brief
So
way, that people that might not
so
understand what
in
that
a
is?
in the same kind of way, a pastor would tell you they hear God and they hear
Hmm.
God speaking to them. It's somebody like that, but just not in a preaching capacity or
Okay.
a church capacity.
Okay, but still in a
It's just
spiritual way.
someone that's just spiritual, that's just like, I hear from God, I hear from source. And she was like, the source was like, man, we don't look at you that way. We don't look at you as a failure. We don't look at you as this monster. We don't look at you as unforgivable or unredeemable. We look at you as love, light. We look at you as, source in the flesh. We
Hmm.
look at you as powerful. We
Yeah.
look at just for the fact that you went through what you went through and was willing to go through it. We admire you.
Yeah. Yeah, and people don't. Well, some people might not be able to wrap their head around the idea of the fact that, you know, we decide to come here and do certain things as before we incarnate into a particular body. I know it's different religions that actually believe more in reincarnation, like I think Hinduism and other things.
Yeah,
Me, I put it like this: my one of my parents is Jehovah's Witness, one of my other parents is Baptist. Me, I'm going to places. I think Church of the Nazarenes now. I'm just spiritual, and I live by the components of, the good things that a lot of the all of the religions kind of have in common. A number of the religions, let's just say that.
right.
So I believe in the idea of reincarnation. I done seen kids, on the Oprah shows talking about, their particular moments, and we discussed it on the show before, as well as, people having near death experiences and
Yeah,
having experience, and then seeing that they actually agreed to come down into this particular life to play their particular role, to learn a certain lesson. And one of those videos that I watched on NDE, which that's near death experience for anybody that don't know, we spoke about it before, but one of the videos I watched, a person talked about how they saw how their abuser ended up signing up for that role. That they might have had two different, they had a different relationship in the previous life, but their abuser signed up to actually play that role for them to get, for them to both learn a lesson and, the particular life that they're living now. And the person, mentioned how, before they understood that or seen that or got that, in that spiritual setting, that they just couldn't understand, how that person could abuse them and how they could forgive that person. But then that feeling switched to sort of admiration of like, okay, dang, you actually signed up to play this role, to do this to these people in this way, or do this to me in this way. That takes a lot, it takes some, cojones, I guess, whatever, to, a heightened spiritual person to be able to put themselves in that particular role. And to speak on that a little bit more, going back to my experience that I mentioned before about, me being abused, um, that's something that could have happened in that particular situation. So you looking at this person that abused you in this wrong way. Now, don't get me wrong, they harmed you, but you got to look at it, not got to, but it might be a good idea to look at it from the lens of, okay, the mirror lens. Okay, what if I did the same thing to somebody else potentially? What if you did the same thing to somebody else? If you believe, can wrap your mind around the idea of living multiple times. What if you did that before? And then what happened to that person to how they actually got in the mode to where they even knew that that was the thing to do? Who administered it to them? Who abused them? For them to even understand that this idea of something to do to somebody else. Because after I was abused, oh yeah, I was a kid, and then I'm going exploring and trying to do the same thing to somebody else too, right? And luckily it didn't. Well, I'm not gonna say luckily, but it was experience that didn't go all the way. But as I got older, I ended up having a conversation with the person. I'm like, yeah, you remember that experience? That time that blah blah blah. I was you. It was seeming like you was with it too or whatever. What was up with that? Oh well, I was kind of scared and I was, kind of playing sleep because I really wasn't, but what did I do? I apologize. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. This is where I learned it from. It happened to me. I was thinking that that was something to do because my first time even being introduced to, having relations was experience like that was, somebody, abusing me, so to speak. So a person's first idea of their first experience of having, relations being that they learn that and think that that's the way to go. They don't have any other thing to play it off of until they start living life more and then, learning about the birds and the bees if they lucky or different things and learning about the way that's supposed to be the normal way of doing things, so to speak. So I actually had to ask a person to, hey, forgive me, So I didn't want to just be on here and be talking about the experience that I had when somebody, abused me, so to speak. I ended up switching the role and then had to, ask to be the person to be forgave in that particular
Right.
time. And I know it's a lot of other people that's here. I knew we was going to have some sort of power in this live from things that were leading up with the forgiveness stuff up until this moment. So I wanted to be as transparent as I could be, and I appreciate you for sharing your experience in this story, because that's a lot. That takes strength to actually make it through something like that. To, getting the point to where the people that you love the most, harm them in a way you talk, what you wasn't in your proper mental space at the time, but to have an episode, a manic episode, and then to display and talk, bad and do uh those sort of things to the people that you love, and then to have to deal with that when you come out and come back to your so-called, normal state of mind, man, that's a lot
Yeah.
to deal with. And for you to be
Man.
around, now and made
Man.
it through it and survived that, man, from that,
Appreciate it.
I want to say congratulations to that, man. That takes a lot of mental fortitude. And like I said, I know it's a lot of people that's going to watch this live, and there's some people that you abuse somebody. Have you asked that person for forgiveness, right? Um, have you forgave the people that have done some things to you because you done things to other people as well? What
Right.
about that? What about forgiving those people? Something you
And
want
it,
to?
yeah, and I wanted to say, like, what I'm saying, if we even took it from a Christian perspective, what I'm saying, like, it doesn't have to be abuse. You know what I'm saying? If you wrong somebody,
Yeah.
period. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's still negative. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And one thing when I was, practicing the Christian faith, one thing that resonated with me was that, what I'm saying, one sin is not greater than the next. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Harming somebody, abuse, but lying to somebody and getting over somebody, conning somebody, you know what I'm saying? It's all the same thing. It still negatively impacts the person.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So, I just wanted to throw that in
Man, I
there.
appreciate that. Thank you for that because we actually needed that because I was just going on this idea of abuse, but like you said, it's way far massive and beyond just the idea of abuse. It could be okay, man. I intentionally flipped this person off and talked crazy to him in traffic, knowing that I was wrong, or I intentionally cut this person off and did this to him because of blah blah blah. It's a number of things, and I want to stop and take a moment to say, hey, the person that actually if they just end up watching this live that abused me. Hey, I forgive you. I had the conversation with you. I forgave you. I love you. They talked about wiping the slate away clean. Now, I can't say how would I put it that I've completely 100% did that, so to speak, just from the idea that I'm bringing it up on the live, but emotionally and all of that other side of it, most definitely. And I thank you for sharing your story with me of what actually happened to you. Thank you for actually apologizing in that conversation too, because that helped. So, and thank you for even, accepting the call. So I appreciate that. I most definitely, I love you. And I will say I learned a lot from the experience. So I try to look at things where it's like, okay, you can find good in the what's considered to be bad or good in all things if you want
Right.
to or allow it. And it's a number of good things I can say that happened from what I learned lesson wise from the experience. So, I'm thankful to be in the space that I'm at now. It made me to be even bigger, greater man, and it gave a conversation for, or something having this conversation here, as well as me pushing into, the therapy route of trying to figure out people and help people that's hurting. But yeah, on forgiveness, I know Soundoff got a more of a biblical idea of I'm sure might have some scriptures. I pulled up some, which is Ephesians 4:3-2, and look up this stuff yourself. Somebody mentioned that in church yesterday too. Like, hey, they had to learn to look up things themselves because people will tell you anything. It's some guy that was preaching his own version of the Bible that was a lot different than what it's supposed to be. But people wouldn't know if they didn't actually crack their ears open and then figure it out for themselves. And whatever your actual spiritual book is, because I know people have different religions. I honor and respect that, and I know a lot of people is in a Christian space and a biblical space. So Ephesians 4:3-2, look that up. Matthew 6, I think 14 and 15, and then Colossians 3:13. And what it's basically saying in a number of these is be kind to one another, tender hearted, forgive one another as God in Christ forgave you. That was the Ephesians one. The Matthew one is for if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you, um, et cetera, et cetera. So do your research yourself. Think about the people that you need to forgive, starting with yourself. And I had to just start making a list because I'm like, man, okay, this is powerful. I feel lighter after I forgave this one
Right.
person. Okay, who all else can I forgive? And what's interesting is like yesterday, I had some homework to do from one of these coaches that gave some homework, and in that list of homework was to see who you can actually forgive. Write down the names of those individuals. Tell them that you forgive them. Tell them that you love them. Say I apologize to you as well. So that was extremely helpful too, and all of that led up to this conversation today, which is crazy.
Yeah, that is dope, man. Let me tell you another experience because sometimes people transition and you don't have the opportunity to have the conversation with them. You
Yeah,
know what
you
I'm
be like
saying?
passing away, like,
Yeah, passing away.
mhm.
You know what I mean? They transition. So one thing consulted me on was like write a mental and emotional release letter.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like all your exes that did you wrong, or your partners that did you wrong,
Hmm.
or you know what I'm saying? Every person you got out with, write them a letter. You know what I'm saying? Write them out. You tell them how you feel. If you got to go off on them, go off on them in the letter.
Hmm.
And then at the end of it, turn around and say, "But I forgive you." You know what I'm
Ah,
saying?
okay.
Because you didn't know what you were doing, or you know what I'm saying, you weren't in the right state of mind, or you know what I'm saying, you weren't meaning to hurt me, but you did, or you know what I mean, and I love you, and then burn the letter.
Mm, that's dope.
So I had wrote several letters, and then I end up at the end writing one to myself.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Like for the things that I've done that I'm not proud of.
yeah.
So yeah.
Man, y'all get that? That's a powerful tool to use or utilize right there. I would say actually do the work. Start to do it and see actually how you feel. Because even in forgiveness, sometimes that will alleviate, a lot of let's just say physical pain that you have, or a lot of that stuff that you holding in, harboring in is kind of, running issues with your life. Sometimes anger issues and different things can be resolved by actually letting it go. So thanks for sharing that technique right there, and I'm glad that you were able to do it on yourself too, because that's the most important thing, us being able to forgive ourselves first off, and so that's definitely powerful. I want to say too on here, hey, if it's anybody I wronged you, I know I had a long 20 plus year studio experience of working with clients and stuff, and at first I know I was closed off. I really didn't speak much, and there was certain people to where I probably didn't want to. I felt like I didn't want to work with. It might not have been as nice to them. I know Soundoff told me that I'm a complete 180 of
Yeah, you different.
than I was before, and a lot of this comes from doing this work. But yeah, so I want to say if I ever wronged any of you, from the heart, I want to say now that, please forgive me. I apologize. I'm sorry for that. I love you. If it's a conversation that we need to have, feel free to hit me up, man. I'm open hearted now. I'll take accountability for that. So yeah, I just want to say that, hey, please forgive me. I love you. I forgive you. If it's somebody that that harmed me or did something to me, man, I'm working through my list. I had some people that I was looking at today and just kind of offer forgiveness from a distance. Like, hey, look, I'll let that go. Look, I forgive you. Please forgive me. I apologize. I love you. I let that go. I was doing that right before we started this live. So
Mm,
it can get addictive, man, in a great way when you start to forgive, and then you'll notice yourself being lighter, flying, soaring higher, and you start noticing yourself being even in a better, higher space of success than before. And it'll alleviate some of those, man, some of those anger issues and some of those moments where you won't have to sit and cut somebody off in traffic or cut somebody out in a line somewhere, or beating, harm somebody. I'm seeing a lot of people taking lives and a lot of different things going on just from some small anger situations. Like a person did something that don't deserve to get their life taken for that particular thing, but a person do it because they just feel so wrong by it, because you moving through life looking through the lens of the negative experiences that you actually had, right?
yeah,
So you going through life looking through the lens of this abuse, and I know some people, man. I know some men that have been abused at a young age, man, by some males, unfortunately, man. And my heart goes out to you, because some of these guys that I know, they get in a moment to where, or they get in a space to where they feel like, I ain't gonna let nobody else do anything to me, and I'm just gonna run through life in an aggressive way. Anybody talk, look at me wrong, bark at me wrong, I'm gonna run through them and I'm gonna take them out of this world. And think
yeah,
about what's gonna happen when that one person do something to you. They probably don't. I'm not saying that it's the right thing that they did, but they do this wrong thing to you, and then you take their life. Now what? They life gone. Now you locked up somewhere, or you running. You on a run, or now you got to deal with the demons of knowing that you took a life that you didn't bring into this world
yeah.
and didn't
You
have
know that.
to do so.
Yeah.
But,
No, I was just gonna say, like a lot of times when the thing or the piece about forgiveness that we sometimes fail to see is like we want payback,
hmm
we want retribution. You know what I'm saying? We want the scales when they're like this to balance out. And
Yeah.
and the thing is, like, it's never gonna be a point where you feel like it's balanced. You know what I'm saying? Somebody slaps you, so now I'm gonna take you out. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't balance. It'll never balance. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, like really practice forgiving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the thing that like I said it earlier. My pastor always say is like, you got to look at it as like when he would say you've done more wrong to Jesus than that person did to you.
hmm
You know what I'm saying? Like you've done just as much as people have done to you. You've done just as much to other people
hmm
in one way or another.
Yep.
So, why not forgive them?
Come on,
Why not forgive yourself?
man.
Why not let it go?
Come on. Have you tried that approach yet? The person that's looking on here, the people that's looking on here, have you tried that approach yet? And I know it might seem far-fetched to you, and sometimes you have to hear it in a number of different ways to actually get the point. I understand that. And it might take a number of different ways for some people get the point and some people may not ever get it, unfortunately. But in my case, it took a number of different times. I might have heard something on the radio or heard this on a YouTube video or got to, I'm reading a book that shouldn't have nothing to do with no forgiveness. And then forgiveness pop up in three chapters of it. And it irritated me, to be honest. When I first saw it, I'm like, man, why they put this mess in this book? This don't make no sense. Like, what forgiveness got to do with success or mind power, man? Get out of here. But I read through it because I wanted to be successful in thinking that, okay, I accomplished this feat of reading this book. I finished the book from the beginning to the end. And as I was reading it, I couldn't understand like how you could forgive somebody and just wipe the slate away clean, man. That was something that was, man, way out of my mind. But the more I started to do it and the more I understand it now, man, and the more it's just blessed my life in the most amazing way. But yeah, anybody that looked on, listened to this live, man, and got a chance to check in and see these two brothers having a down to earth, down to spirit conversation, man, I pray that you get something from it. And I know it's somebody or some people that's on here that was supposed to hear this message just from how things aligned and came together. And you know exactly who you are. And as you hearing me say this right now, you might think, oh, he talking to just he can't be talking to me personally because he's just talking on this live or podcast to a number of people. No, if it what they say if the rock hits you,
Right,
scream. Something like
right.
that. You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm saying that in a playful way, but in a serious, more serious manner. You if you feel convicted by it, then you know it's something that you may need to do, and hopefully this might be the time that actually gets you over that threshold and puts you down the road or helps you to start going down the road of forgiveness and start seeing how it changes and affects your life. And if you need some advice, hey, hit one of us on Messenger, man, and we'll be more than happy to give you some advice according to our particular experience. Well, we want to say we love y'all, man. Y'all bless yourself, as we say, bless yourself and then bless others. But you got to bless yourself first. So forgive yourself first, then go on your road to forgiving others, right? And then you'll be even lighter and you'll fly higher and soar even higher in this world, even better into the places of success and the ideas of the things that you want the most out of life, right? Closer to that. Sound off. You got anything else before we get out of here?
So I just wanted to take time. You did it. So I mean, for any person that I've wronged or disrespected in a manic episode, or you took it as I was disrespecting you, probably I was probably manic. I probably wasn't in the right mind, but yet still I accept ownership and accountability for my actions. So anybody that feels like I've done them wrong, I apologize to you deeply. It's not my intention to go around offending people or threatening people or trying to get aggressive with anybody or anything like that. So from the bottom of my heart, I apologize.
Man, thank you for that. And I know we had when we were having our business relationship way back in the day. I looked at some of y'all old songs in a Mad Art Click folder, man, from 2008, not something long time ago when I was looking for somebody files. I saw y'all folder the other day, but I know it got to the point where I think you might have had a episode, and then you did a messenger message that was a real long message, and I felt like I'm like, man, what's the dude talking crazy for? Like, what, man, dude
Yeah,
out his mind, man. I'm cutting dude off, man. I don't really want to have no communication with him, man. People like this, I don't even want to have close to my life. This is what I was thinking at the time, and I'm like, yeah, the dude, I seem like he be preaching some biblical stuff, and then now he saying stuff like this on this, man. Man, I'm
yeah,
trying to just
it
avoid
happened.
communication with this guy, not even knowing that what mental space you were in, not even knowing that you were battling with bipolar one. It is correct.
Yeah,
Not even knowing that. So uh, this is another thing in forgiveness. So then once I started getting in the road of forgiveness, it led me down the path to where I started getting into therapy, and then I started wanting to get to the point to where I can be better myself, help others. And then we end up having a conversation because I was like, I'm gonna go to this event and I'm gonna look for a particular artist to do some therapy with and do this new idea or package and creation of therapy, this program of therapy that I'm creating. I want to help a person with it and kind of get some case studies and results and feedback with it from a particular person. And then you came down the steps. And because I was open in the heart at that time, and I started doing the work on myself, forgiving myself, starting to forgive others, understanding more about people to where just because a person is going off or going this crazy tangent, that don't mean that they in their right mind. Like we got to start to research hopefully and understand mental health more and understand that people go through things. It could be from a chemical imbalance, it could be from a traumatic life experience or imbalance in that particular way. But I'm glad that I went through the experience that I went through because it led me to the experience of you coming down the steps and then you end up, having some good words to say to me. You was like, man, hey, bro, I see what you're doing, this, and that, and that. And I heard the album, man, I enjoyed it. Man, had a lot of kind stuff to say. I appreciate you for saying that. And then I was like, man, you know what? I felt it in that moment. Like, hey, we need to talk, man. I got some stuff that when I get off the phone with the tax person, man, I'm gonna come holler at you. And we talk for the rest of that what you call it,
That
conference
event.
or event. Yeah, that
Yeah.
the Homes D Dirt through. But yeah, so and now we in a place to where we here now, man, and we able to have conversations like this, man, down to spirit conversations, man. So I love you, brother, man. Thank you for
Love you
doing
too.
your work. Thank you for giving us understanding on, some of the mental health things that people go through, and that they might be in a state of mind that they actually don't really consciously mean what's going on. It's just something that they battling with. And another guy that seen one of our lives end up coming when you mentioned something about bipolar, and this gentleman said that like people don't understand, and we just don't ask God to get us to it, so to speak. We just don't go to Sam's and be like, okay, let me pick up bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 or whatever off the shelf and take it with
Man.
me. I want this. It was like that ain't it ain't like we just went to just say that we wanted to have it like that. We dealing with these mental issues that we would rather not have. So hopefully y'all can start getting some understanding and more empathy for some of the people in your lives that might be battling with certain things. But yeah, I just want to mention too, since we on here, I got my community live now, so I got a mental wellness technique community that's got a number of great techniques in it. Some of the stuff me and Soundoff was able to do one-on-one. And a lot of this stuff, man, helps people in a lot of negative emotions, such as like anger, fear, guilt, sadness, hurt, grief, anxiety, a number of different things. And yeah, go log on to mentalcoachkev.com. Please be a part of the community. I really love to have you in. It's going to help me, sustain a state of living and pay bills, as well as help you to get in a better mental space. Don't sleep on the techniques because there's some magical stuff that can help change your life in there. And it's some stuff that I'm able to, by your help being a part of the community, offer stuff for free for other individuals. We actually got a chance to work with a homeless gentleman. I mentioned that before here in North Little Rock. We just ended up running up on a random bus stop and was able to help a homeless gentleman that he said he was battling with a lot of those emotions, negative emotions I just mentioned to y'all. And he said that he lost his family and lost his home, and he was homeless, and was got emotional and started crying in a particular moment. And we was able to help him, get some relief in that. So the techniques that I use with him, or the technique that I use with him, and other techniques are in that community, that mental community. So, help a brother out, help yourself out, help our world out and our community out. Go to mentalcoachkev.com and join the community. Thank you. Sound off. Please tell people what you got going on and
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah. So still working on the website. Gonna get somebody on that real soon. I'm talking to him now, so I'm in the process of getting that fixed. Um, you can follow me on all social media platforms, Sound Off the General. New music is being worked on as we discussed. So sometime in the later part of this year, more music will be out.
Most definitely. We still got to
And
work on a record, dude. Go ahead.
oh yeah, but I was gonna say if you need some if you ain't heard of me, there's 3 projects out there: Calm Before the Storm, The Process, and Songs About K. You check them out.
Yeah. Y'all go look at Sound After General on Spotify, all the Music if you're in Memphis, Apple Music,
YouTube.
YouTube, all of that stuff. Y'all go check Sound After General album, follow him on all those platforms. And hey, I'm on the platforms as well, like Instagram, TikTok. I done started a TikTok now and doing my stuff and getting more open with sharing some of these things. But yeah, man, y'all stay blessed, man. Y'all bless yourself, man. Bless somebody else. Y'all enjoy your day. Have a great day. And move out into the world, man, and be your true authentic self as much as you can, and forgive yourself and forgive some other people. That's right.
That's right.
Y'all hold it down. All right, peace.
Peace.